Hello and welcome to the hard sell, where a stick in the swill-bucket rattles back. Christmas is looming like a massive tinsel-covered shog-off rising implacably from the seas at Innsmouth. It's just 1 week to Black Friday, that great modern festival of consumption where we literally try to kill each other to purchase the latest transient material item we've been ordered to desire. Usually it's a toy of some kind. The acquisition-crazed 80s and economic boom of the 90s eventually gave birth to a faintly sick new Christmas tradition. A new toy that every child in the Western world absolutely must have or die. From the Cabbage Patch Kids to Tickle Me Elmo to the Furby, a form of insanity was first normalised, then anticipated, then finally rendered entirely unremarkable, necessitating another shift of the old Overton window. Black Friday is just the latest mutation of the Tickle Me Elmo effect. I'll get into Sue's corner if it kills me. Never mind the late show bollocks though, where's the stupid jokes about adverts? Well, coming right up. Herewith a selection of commercials and children's programming for toys and games in the 80s and 90s, when it's considered perfectly okay to pitch directly and aggressively at the children themselves. It was also considered extremely correct to split along gender lines. Neither of these trends have truly died out since, but they're a little less prominent than they used to be.
The new Barbie golden dream motor home, just unpack it and go.
Wow.
Four-wheel driving in a fun car, a bed and a vanity wherever you are. Dreamy place to die.
Golden candlesticks!
When it's fun.
Oh, no
The
rain!
new Barbie golden dream motor home, she's got something special.
Barbie, of course, is practically immutable, more of an institution than a brand. But even she saw a bit of a wobble around the turn of the century, when the plump-lipped, noseless, cosmetic-slathered effigies of conspicuous consumption known as the Brats came along and changed the game.
Passion for fashion, passion for fashion, passion for fashion. You gotta self-express in the way you dress. If you got attitude, make your fashion move.
Don't theorize, accessorize.
If you got passion, show it in your fashion. The girls with a passion for fashion. Brats.
Yasmin, Chloe, Sasha, Jade, Bratz, each sold separately with 2 mix-and-match outfits.
That eventually came out in the wash when we realised how creepy things were getting. Hi there, product of a healthy society. Funny how these things were originally supposed to be edgy, post-feminist alternatives to Barbie. Not funny, ha-ha, mind. In 1988, it was impressively modern just that Barbie had her own motorbike, in pink, of course, and with a basket on the back for shopping and baubles.
Barbie motorbike.
Where to, Barbie? She's going to cruise the avenue on her beautiful new motorbike. Wow, rev it up! Sounds great! It's got all the right stuff, even a safety helmet and a backpack. Barbie, you'll be sensational on your motorbike, cruising down the avenue.
The Barbie motorbike comes with a safety helmet and backpack and everything you see here.
New from Mattel, the world's #1 name in toys.
It's hardly Susie Quattro material, it's a footrest short of a moped, really. The main reason for bringing this advert up at all is that I'm genuinely impressed with the performances of the 2 stage school girls. They clearly know this is bollocks, but they're throwing everything they can into it anyway, apparently out of sheer bloody-mindedness. Look at this one's face. She wanted to be a jet pilot, for Christ's sake. But her mum and dad had to sign her up for stage school instead so they could make money off her cute blonde bangs while she was still little. Enjoy my paycheck, mother dear. Meanwhile, the brunette is throwing so much into the addressing the doll as if it's alive lines, it actually feels like she's being sarcastic.
Wow, rev it up!
American advertising kits are much better behaved than ours, and therefore less interesting.
New from Mattel, the world's #1 name in toys.
And in the interest of balance, let's hear from Cindy, Britain's very own answer to Barbie, only much less successful, especially of late.
Cindy's here, superstar Cindy, glittering hair that sparkles and shines. She's got style and superstar outfits, bracelets to match.
This is from Hasbro's primacy over the doll, during which their main strategy for competing with Barbie was to make Cindy practically identical, in particular by giving her more or less the exact same face, although not chest. Mattel eventually insisted on a slightly altered version, but Hasbro never truly diverged from their basic tactic of Cindy as Danny to Barbie's Kylie, which effectively led to her decline and Hasbro giving up and going home. The rights have long since reverted to her creators, Pedigree Toys and Dolls, who do manufacture her today but in much smaller numbers than at her heyday. She also looks like herself again, which is to say, round-faced, cherubic and full-lipped rather than all cheekbones.
Don't miss the next devastating adventure of Cindy in Dollhouse.
And of course boys get toys designed to prepare them for a life of manual labour.
Got my assy dump truck, gonna be dump trucking all day. Forward or reverse, that's as good as gold. Cause my assy dump truck is radio control.
Even the advert doesn't make it seem too exciting.
I can go slow and not so slow too.
Little pang of honesty prevents them from calling it fast, just slow and not so slow. At least it is honest.
Keep out of my way, I got a job to do.
Yeah, you think I'm playing around here?
See, dump truck keeps on trucking all day.
Give it its due, it is the perfect way to make a mess with maximum efficiency and cause serious injuries in multiple creative ways. And at least they got Lemmy to perform the jingle. Respect my headcanon.
Trust Tommy.
If us boys didn't want toys that simulated menial jobs, back then we had to make do with ones that celebrated violence and conflict. Like today's Action Man.
This is today's Action Man, watching the armoured jeep getting ready for action.
His eyes move to the left and everything. Here's a platoon of the sod.
Talking commander gives his orders.
Give me some cover.
The assault copter fires off its rockets in support, right on target.
Talking gun haver gives his orders. That guy with the helicopter fires his Justice rocket backpack rocket. And the Valeyard watches the battle from a distance, drawing up his plans.
But is the battle over? Only you know. You and Action Man.
And he's made of plastic, so he's not telling anyone. This is from 1981. The poor old soldier's on the wane at this point. In 3 years, G.I. Joe would have subsumed the brand, and Action Man's name will be tangled up in litigation. He started out as a licensed adaptation of G.I. Joe, and he ultimately got lost in the wash when that property was relaunched in the 80s with the Real American Hero team and Cobra and the shit cartoon and such. In this country, the property was known for a while as Action Force, in a lame attempt at continuity, but basically there was no such thing as Action Man throughout the 80s and early 90s. Instead, we had this sort of thing.
The evil Crimson Twins, Zaymot and Tomax, have located the Action Force Devilfish base.
Let's hit 'em, Tomax.
With the ultra-fast Cobra Hydra sled. But the Devilfish snap into action.
It's an ambush, Zaymot.
Get him a torpedo! Full force!
But the evil twin brothers have one last trick up their sleeve.
We'll be back.
Cobra Hydra sled, Crimson Twins and Action Force Devilfish sold separately.
Action Force.
You see, it's the G.I. Joe cartoon, but more half-assed. To make matters worse, I never even saw the damn show. It must have been shown in this country somewhere, but I never saw it. Maybe it was on the embryonic Sky Channel or something. Or tucked away on TBAM. Either way, it just made these adverts seem weirder and wronger when they came on. Tie-ins for what I presumed was an American show that we didn't even get over here, as far as I knew. And it wasn't Action Man either.
Action Havoc was headed for each base when suddenly things moved black. Out of the heavens came the Cobra Rattler. Action Force is under attack.
Will the Havoc with its twin cannons bring Cobra down to earth?
Action Force, national hero.
Havoc comes with driver, Rattler with pilot.
Action Force.
Until they brought the fucker back, just in time for Christmas '93. Except that this turned out to be something of a false start.
He's back, and nothing's going to stop him. It's Action Man! Stalker, Duke, and Snake Eyes fight the evil Cobra Commander. Each 12 inches tall and authentically detailed. From lifelike hair to cloth uniforms, combat helmets, and metal dog tags. And each Combat Action Man comes with an awesome light and sound weapon.
You might be able to tell it's not quite right. He's explicitly a rebranded G.I. Joe, right down to his US Army uniform and dog tags, and characters like Cobra Commander and, I don't know, Firebird, still hanging around like vestigial tales.
Action Man, he's back, and nothing's going to stop him!
No, it wouldn't be until 1996 that Action Man was truly relaunched in his own right, as a completely new sort of freelance James Bond type character, except louder and stupider.
Action Man! The world's treasure has been stolen, and real photos are needed. Photo Mission Action Man with camera that really works, that you load, aim, and take real photos. Action Man, the greatest hero of them all. Exposed at last. Action Man Photo Mission.
His new villain, Dr. X, actually makes more intuitive sense than Cobra. Cobra were an organisation and therefore must ostensibly have wanted something or believed in something just by definition. Dr. X is clearly just a dick, and because he works solo doesn't need any greater justification than that.
Dr. X turns up the heat, but Action Man Bowman has him in his sights. With working bow and arrows, he really fires to shaft X's plans. Action Man, the greatest hero of them all. Get the point, X. Action Man Bowman.
By the time of Action Man's true return, we'd gone through the whole 80s buy all our playsets and toys trend and largely come out the other side, with one or two regrets at how far we'd taken it. When we started making kiddie action figures based on 18-rated films, oh carnage and explosions, it became a little troubling.
They're unstoppable! But we're gonna stop them anyway! Send in the Marines!
We're the Space Marines! Drake, Ripley, A-Bone, Bishop, and I'm Hicks, armed with the latest high-tech heavy metal.
Look out, Hicks! The Queen's gonna crown ya! My bug rocker's on a roll! Bull alien attacking! Eat torch, bug brain!
Alien invasion problem? Send in the Marines!
Aliens! Send in the Marines!
Space Marines, aliens!
Aliens was odd enough as a property for kidsploitation, but at least that had an SF premise to keep it at arm's length from reality.
Rambo.
It's often forgotten that John Rambo, the damaged Vietnam veteran psychologically incapable of relating to anyone non-violently, had his own Saturday morning cartoon show and tie-in picture books and action figures. At least the aspirational consumerism of Barbie had a surface positivity. Blue-collar workers and trained killers were what us boys were given, and Rambo and the Force of Freedom is one of the most nihilistic of the lot.
Evil has a new name. It's Savage, the secret army of vengeance and global evil. Today, Savage and its diabolical leader, General Warhawk, threaten the freedom of everyone on the face of the earth. Can anyone stop Savage? Rambo. He's not just another Joe. He's a fighting machine, expert in all tactical weapons and guerrilla warfare. Rambo's the one man you want when the going gets rough. But the fight won't be easy because General Warhawk doesn't fight fair, and he doesn't fight alone. Second in command is Sergeant Havoc. He thrives on treachery and dirty tricks. Mad Dog, he's one mean dude with a real short fuse. Gripper, a ruthless mercenary. He rewrote the book on combat. Nomad, a terrorist who's not above seizing hostages or planting a bomb. And the final member of Savage is the Black Dragon, a deadly ninja warrior. But if freedom and justice are to survive, the only hope is with Rambo and the Force of Freedom. Fighting alongside Rambo is Colonel Troutman, the toughest CO in the Special Forces. Turbo, an electronics whiz whose inventions keep the Force of Freedom one step ahead of Savage. Cat, She's always ready to swing into action. And the White Dragon, who, unlike his evil twin brother, uses his ninja powers only for good. The battle will be fierce. It'll be fought on the land and in the air. But with Rambo and the force of freedom, justice and liberty will never surrender, no matter what the odds. Rambo.
The premise is basically one set of arseholes against another set of arseholes. There's no discernible difference between the two sides, except that one is described as good and the other as evil. I mean, Christ, one of the characters is even explicitly identical. Rambo and his set of bricks are fighting for some abstract concepts, and Savage are fighting against them, but there's no clue as to what any of that actually means. It's just mayhem. Two identically destructive forces with arbitrary narrative designations. Nothing actually means anything beyond basic labels of protagonist and antagonist. Clap and cheer this napalm attack, boo and hiss that one. And yes, okay, I am reading too much into these child's toys. That's the whole point. These are for children, with their limited understanding of the world. People who desperately need to be taught the meaning of words like freedom, and the difference between right and wrong. And in particular, that it goes beyond one ninja wearing white and the other black. I am being perhaps a little unfair in singling out Rambo and the Force of Freedom. Rambo's adaptation into just another militaristic licensed property was the logical conclusion of the G.I. Joe buy all our playsets and toys simple-minded action cartoon trend, not a typical example of it. And it made people kind of queasy at the time, not least the people who had to somehow develop an R-rated film into something child-friendly. Hence the trend going no further and paring back into the less realistic realms of Japanese kaiju and giant robots, not to mention dinosaurs. Well, that went darker and more serious than I was anticipating. Must be the weather. These days, of course, efforts are being made to desegregate and degenderise toys so as not to promote one particular vision of either masculinity or femininity to the impressionable child, or indeed give any undue weight to such notions in the first place. Personally, I still regret that Fisher-Price Wells for Boys weren't available when I was a kid.
Introducing Wells for sensitive little boys from Fisher-Price. Wells for sensitive boys to wish upon, confide in, and reflect by.
Really could have used one of them. You've been watching a Bob the Fish production. Thanks! If you haven't found it already, be sure to check out our website at bobthefish.org.uk. Literally hundreds of videos not unlike this one that will make you laugh, think and realise new things or your money back. Which works out great because they're all absolutely free. All of this is possible thanks to the not unique way that Bob the Fish productions are paid for by you, the viewing public, via Patreon. For a donation of as little as £1 a month, not only do you ensure that I still have food and shelter so I can carry on making these programmes, but you could become eligible for a whole host of cool extras. New video essays, special event live streams, all my content a week in advance, and my book on the history of the BBC, Rule the Waves, chapter by chapter as it's written. And some cake, if you go out and buy a cake and eat it while you're watching. And if you don't want to support on a monthly basis, you can make a one-off donation via Coffee. It all helps stave off scurvy. bobthefish.org.uk. You make it what it is.